gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
What's up, guys? What is up? Welcome back to Deck Talk Podcast. And I'm Colin Burnett, and
And
here's
I
my
am
good
Norman
buddy
Lee.
Norman. And we have a special guest, and we've got 16-time Bassmaster Classic qualifier, Mr. Shaw Grigsby. How are you doing, brother?
What is going on, Shaw?
I'm doing good, man, and thanks for having me on.
Yes, sir.
Man,
This is a privilege for us to have you on and chit chat with you for a little bit.
yeah, it definitely is. So, guys, just like every podcast, just like how it is a interactive podcast. So if you want to ask Mr. Shaw about any kind of questions about his fishing and stuff like that, feel free to leave it in the comments and we will ask him. We just like what we say with everybody else, do not ask for any kind of wave points from him. But we will ask questions. So we want to say, Shaw, thank you for coming on, and we it is an honor to have you here on our podcast.
Cool. Well, I'm pleased to be here.
Awesome,
So
awesome, awesome.
um, let's talk about let's. We want to start the podcast off on an interesting note. Norman and I have seen and I guess it was a podcast, wasn't it, Norman?
It was a couple podcasts that they're talking about this. And let me tell
And
you, it had me in stitches the whole podcast listening to the stories.
well, and that's the reason why we wanted to bring it up because we were laughing the whole time during all this, and but we heard a story about you bringing home a poisonous snake, a rattlesnake, wasn't
Yeah, I
it?
did. I actually caught one at a little town outside of here. I was working at a place, and on the way to work, come up on this 6 foot, eastern diamondback, and I used to catch snakes when I was in high school, so um, I've actually got a funny deal. I actually carried a live rattlesnake cottonmouth, a rattlesnake and a live cottonmouth. So both. I had two of them. I carried to school, and we had them live in school. And we fed them. Nowadays you take that to school and you get thrown out, suspended, back, and all that. But anyway, so yeah, I used to do stupid stuff. Still do. But back then I was. But anyway, so this one that you're talking about, I was going to work, and since I had that background to catch him, I saw that big one. I had a bucket. I had my snake stick. I just lifted him up and put him in the bucket, and I brought him home. Now my wife was a nurse, so she's working at night, and she gets off. I think she got off at 11, so she's working, whatever time to 11. And so I brought it home, put it in an aquarium, and put the top on, secured it, and where it could breathe and all that. And then I covered it with a blanket, and I had it on the kitchen table. And she walks in 11 o'clock at night, and she walks into the kitchen, and this thing lights off and just buzzes. I caught it, man. I caught it, man. She was like
Oh, man.
hollering at me, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I should have told you. And she's like, get that out of the house. And so,
Oh, man.
that's one of the last fours. I think I caught a little pygmy rattler that I caught, and it got real close to biting me. And I said, I ought not to be doing this. The older you get, the slower you get. So
Yeah.
I have gotten a little smarter now that I'm older.
That's hilarious, man. Yeah, I don't
Well,
know what my wife would do if she was in the same situation your wife was in. I'd probably be renting a room at Collins right now or something like that.
well, I got a.
I caught it. I caught it pretty bad. She was, and that's saying it real mildly.
Oh wow.
Well, I've got a snake story for you, Shaw. Um, I was, let's see, I was maybe 9, 10 years old, and I grew up in Nashville. So we were fishing Old Hickory Lake, and there was a tree that just hung over, and I was fishing with my granddaddy, and he threw his bait, and it got caught into the tree. So he went over to the tree and grabbed that limb and got his bait, and then he just let go of it. Well, him letting go of it dropped the snake right in between his legs, and I'm 9, 10 years old, and he's like, "Ooh, ooh, get it out!" And I promise you, I thought that he was going to either he. I guarantee you, if I wasn't there, that snake just bought him a boat.
Oh man. I would have gave the snake to my boat and went out the other side.
Yeah, and so that's one thing I remember about. I mean, one memories of fishing with my grandfather was
Great.
was that memory that and he had a camp on Kentucky Lake, and um, we would go there a couple times a month. He had like a cabin and stuff, and so we'd go and fish a couple times a month, and then or would go and hunt on at the land between the lakes, and he uh, and it was middle of winter, and back then, I mean, we really didn't. I mean, if somebody was to do this now, people would raise Cain about it. But he had a kerosene heater in the boat with us to kind of keep us warm. So,
It's a little scary.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm listening to all these stories of both y'all, and I'm like, I must have led a boring life, because all
Yeah.
the stories that isn't near that interesting.
So, but yeah. So, Norman, you got something for him?
I mean, I got a snake story, but it doesn't hold toe to you guys. No, my snake story dates back. I don't even know how old I was. I can't remember it. I've just heard stories of dad and mom telling me back in the day. But I was probably like just able to walk. And back then, where we lived in Lake Placid, there was not near as populated as it is now. I mean, there's like 5 houses on the road now. I think today there's like 30 or 40. But anyway, taking a walk with mom at like 5 or 6 years old, and of course I'm lagging way behind. So my mom's walking up the middle of the road, and there's pretty much just woods on both sides of it. Well, she's walking, looking back, trying to figure out where I am, calling me, and she stops to call me again. And when she stops, she looks down, and her toe is resting about a quarter of an inch from a diamondback that stretched all the way across the road. And this is back in the early 70s. Um,
Wow.
so she basically stood there. She didn't know what kind of snake it was, but I guess she was too startled to move a toe. So she must have stood there. I think the way the story was told to me. Now I don't know if mom and dad beefed it up a little bit. I don't know that part of it, but anyway, after about 2 minutes of standing as still as she could be, and she basically hollered at me, "Stay and don't come." After trying to get me to come, she's trying to get me to stay back now, and she moved a little bit of her toe, and I guess the snake took off through the woods. Well, not even a minute after that, one of the neighbors from further down the street comes by and basically told her, she described what it looked like, and he basically told her, God must have been looking out for us that day, because her toe was like almost resting on a diamondback. And she just moved her toe a little bit, and I guess that little sensation of the toe moving. I think the good part about it is it was stretched out, and her toe was like in the middle of it, you know, where it wasn't close to the head, and it wasn't curled where it could actually spring load on her. So
That's
that's my
too
snake.
close.
Y'all want to see something cool? Matt Reed, who's another great angler on tour, and if you go to his Facebook page, Matt Reed, and you look at his post, he came off, I think it was at Dardanelle, I believe it was, and this is just, a week or so ago, a couple weeks ago, so it's not very far back in his post stories. But he came off the water and he was hooking his boat up. You hook your bow, and then you go around and you hook the straps on the back, and then you go put your motor toter on. And now with the Pro XSs, you have to put a bar on each side of your steering. Well, he's getting ready to put his toter on, and now you remember he puts the straps on, so his head is right next to the motor when you bend over to hook those straps. He looks in there, and there is a big old cottonmouth.
Oh my goodness!
Steering. And he's like, I can't even believe that I got away with that with his head that close to the cottonmouth.
Oh wow!
And but it's an incredible. He took pictures, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I think I would have just fainted. Just to be that close.
You and me both. That
is crazy.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah, crazy. That Matt Reed, he's a great guy.
Yeah, well, I'll have to look that up and check that out. That's insane. I can't even picture what I would do if something like that happened. Like you said, I probably wouldn't remember any of it because they'd wake me up in coma.
Yeah, I think you had to get a rod and poke him out, and do all that kind of stuff and get him out. I think it would have been hard pressed for me not to shoot him in the motor.
If I had a gun, I'd probably blow a hole in the back of my boat trying to shoot the thing. Probably missing 5 times and 5 holes in my boat.
You need more drain plugs.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's hilarious. That is hilarious, man.
Yeah.
How about now? We heard the snake story. Now, I also heard something about you in school and rescuing the whole class from an alligator.
Yeah.
Now, before I was gonna say, Sean, before you go into that, I'm thinking when I'm hearing these stories, and I'm thinking, man, none of this that happened back then would ever happen today. With
You're right.
not, I mean, listen to this, I'm like, holy cow, man, only back then.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't have idiots. I mean, very honestly, we didn't. I mean, when I brought those snakes to school, we weren't worried that somebody was going to try to see if they were faster than them striking.
Yeah.
That people were just brighter and didn't care. What, we're not going to touch it. We knew better, and so we didn't have to worry about it. I sold those 2 snakes to Ross Allen Reptile Institute down there in Silver Springs, which is pretty cool. But the gator deal was I was the outdoor kid, right? I was the kid that was always hunting and fishing and doing all the rest, and so my biology teacher, same one that we took the snakes down to, that was actually her 4th husband, I think, was Ross Allen, who's the premier authority on poisonous snakes back then. But anyway, she comes, gets me out of class and says, and I said, what do you need? She says, there's a gator in the creek, and so we don't want any kids getting bit. And I'm like, what about kids? Get bit by
Now, what grade were you in, Shaw?
Yeah, the only gators I caught back then were like on a buzz bait or something,
Yeah.
And so it was kind of cool to go down in the creek, and she waded in the creek with me, and he had submerged down on the bottom as clear water, and he was in about, I don't know, maybe 18 inches or so of water, and I did just what I would with the snake. I snuck up, behind him, behind his back, and grabbed him behind his head, and boy, he lit out, man. I mean, he just beat me up. I got a hold of his tail, and that's pounded on me, and so we had a little wrestling match, and then my teacher took my belt off, so we actually wore belts to school, and they took the belt off, wrapped it around his mouth, and we got him out, because they can't open their mouth. They can close it very dramatically, but you can hold a 10-foot gator's mouth closed with 2 fingers if you can get your fingers around his mouth. That's the deal. But they don't have much opening power, but they can sure close. So anyway, once we got that, we taped him and carried him up, and we took him to another teacher's place and let him go at his little pond. Cool.
What grade were you in there?
I'm going to say probably 10th.
Oh, so you're probably 16 at the time, or?
Yeah, it was either 15, 16. I was about
I would have been the kid that was honestly hiding in the corner on the other side of the school.
It was fun, man. Times were so good back then, and my dad loved the outdoors. He loved hunting, fishing, fly fishing for trout. He loved getting outdoors. My mom, right alongside him. When we'd take vacations, it'd be camping across the country. We'd go to the mountains in Highland, North Carolina, and go trout fishing. And we'd go to the Gulf fishing on weekends. And if we had a time off, we were going somewhere. We didn't have computers, and we didn't have Disney World. We didn't have any of that stuff, and so it was outdoors was the ground.
Yeah.
And you come home from school, you get your homework done, you take off, and next thing you'd hear is your mom yelling for you, come to dinner and whatever, and y'all had to run back and gather everything up, and that were really special times. And nowadays, I've got a 4-year-old granddaughter going to turn 5 in September. I've got a 6-year-old granddaughter just turned 6. And I've got a 16-year-old grandson, and I wouldn't want any of them out on their own, even at 16. It's very disappointing to see the direction the world is going.
Yeah. It's definitely a different time than when we were younger and stuff like that. But we have a question already. With going to 16 classics, was that 16th one just as exciting as the first one?
Yeah, I can tell you though, the first one was really special. And back in those days, I think the first, I'm going to say 3 or 4 or 5 that I made, we had tackle restrictions. So you could bring 5 rods and reels. Now, I mean, you can be an amateur bass fisherman fishing tournaments in a club level or whatever, and you're going to have 5 rods and reels. You can probably have more than that. So to be a professional and show up at the world's biggest tournament and be able to use 5 rods and reels was ridiculous. So I whined and complained about it, and I think a lot of other guys did, but we finally got that changed. But we also only had 10 pounds of tackle. So he'd send you a tackle box, and you put your tackle in that and weighed it, put tackle in and weighed it. And Ray would always mess with you. He would go put it on, he'd put his finger on the scale or once say, dude, you got more than 10 pounds, and all of a sudden he'd go in and he'd pull out the best thing, or somebody would sneak a brick into somebody else's tackle box, something like that. And so there was always funny business. Ray was always a jokester, and he was just, what a magnificent person.
Ray, he definitely was a special person. I believe that if it was not for Ray Scott, that bass fishing would not be what bass fishing
near what it is today if it wasn't for Ray.
100%. So, but getting back to that classic deal, so those classics, you'd show up and they were, dress up, get dinner, they take buses to this event and bus you back. You get back at 11 o'clock, sometimes later. You jump in bed, sleep a few hours, get up, you go fishing. You come back after rush in, take a shower, or do whatever, get off to the next event. You were so busy that the time that was special in those early classics were when you're on the water, because that's the only time you could think. It was so busy and so chaotic that I would just go, finally I'm on the water, now I can, go fishing. So the latter classics, you don't have much to do. They'd have 1 night or 2 nights of stuff to do. You'd bring your own boat and all that kind of stuff. And so it was a lot more relaxed, and you could focus a lot more on fishing more than those early classics. But every one of them are special. Every one of them is exciting, to have the opportunity to possibly win the biggest tournament that's in bass fishing. That's where it's at. That's the deal.
And you hear everybody that ever qualifies for the classic, the first thing they'll ever say on any kind of an interview is, this one tournament's not about the money. It's about lifting that trophy over their head.
The there's two things that really qualify you and last forever. One is the Bassmaster Classic. That is a career statistics like winning the Super Bowl. It's like whatever winning the Masters if you're a golfer. That is the pinnacle of success is winning the Bassmaster Classic. And the other one, of course, is AOY Angler of the Year, which is when you are the best of all your anglers of all your peers, you're the best for that year. Across all the tournaments. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, oh, no doubt. And we actually talked to some anglers this past year that is past AOI winners and qualified for the Classic. And every one of them, when we asked them the question, every one of them pretty much said if they had the choice, they would trade in their AOI for a Bassmaster Classic trophy.
Yeah, and that's true. It's the biggest single thing you could have, biggest single accomplishment. It's more prestigious within the anglers to win AOY. I mean, that's a much harder thing to do.
Yeah.
That's over a full season. The Classic literally is one tournament. It's 3 days. It is not that big. It is a tournament. You got to look at it just like whatever. It is one tournament, 3 days.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it. If you're on them on those 3 days and you walk away with it, you won the biggest thing in the world.
Yeah.
That's why you have guys that that may have been their only win, or they, that's like one of their only wins in terms was to win that.
Yeah.
So it's because it can be done that way.
Yeah.
In fact, we had Brian Kirchhoff, great young man, won it as an amateur, and now who knows? Unfortunately, because he was doing work, he had to go, because once you win the Classic, you're going to do all kinds of, seminars and sport shows and all that, and he got killed that year, so right after his Classic win, so who knows what he could have done.
Yeah.
But, there's a lot of one-time wonders out there.
Now, I don't know if you noticed what that was. I was holding up Shaw, but you mentioned Brian Kirchhoff. That's actually, of course, it's not the original, but that's actually an autographed whistle that,
I have one of those.
Exactly, man. And I have this right here on my desk. I actually have 3 or 4 of them with his, that has his signature, but it's the coolest thing. But yeah, the story behind that, when every fish he caught, I would think the story behind it was he was actually handed that by a fan, and he took it on as a good luck charm. And if I'm wrong, and you might correct me if you know the right story, but that's the story I heard. And after every fish catch, that he would blow it. During the Classic, yeah. So that's pretty cool, but very, very tragic ending to what what he had started
Really
there.
sad. Really
Very sad, yes.
Well, we got another question from Mike Lindell, which he's down in southern Florida, Shaw. He's saying, who is your favorite angler of all time?
Wow. I mean, really true legends out there. I'm going to have to say Rick Clunn.
Awesome, man.
Rick and Roland. Roland was probably the best single angler overall. He did everything. I mean, he'd catch anything, any species. And I got to get in the boat with him fly fishing for tarpon one time, and he's just so impressive as and he's still today, dude, he's like 80 or whatever, and he's still out there every day fishing and guiding and filming and YouTubing and doing stuff. I mean, his passion for fishing's unsurpassed. So Roland's always been one that was, like one of the guys that I really looked up to, and the other, of course, Rick Clunn. And Rick Clunn, I've always felt, was the best single bass angler in the world. And so he's just a fantastic person. Kevin, I think, surpassed that. And who knows if, Wheeler is going to surpass that. But Kevin Van Dam is, and I think, Kevin came along after I'd already started. And so I don't think of him in that hero status, even though he is everybody else's hero. He's definitely, and he's a personal friend. And he, it's not like I revere him as much because he's a personal friend, you know what I mean? And Rick, and he's a personal friend too, I could call him today, but I still think he's, he just, those guys that did it when there was nothing there was no money much at all involved, and yet they built the sport. They put their families, their livelihoods, everything on the line to go pursue this and create this with Ray. And I have such a appreciation for those guys, for the old guys.
Yeah.
And
Now, how hard is it? Because you've got 9 career wins, correct? How hard is it? Like when you see like Kevin Van Dam with the wins and the big wins that he has, like how hard is that to be able to accomplish what he has um, in the time frame that he really has? I mean, because
Yeah.
which I think, I mean, he still has it in. I mean, you put a jerk bait in his hand, he's still one of the deadliest persons out there out on the lake. And so, can you talk about like how hard it is
Yeah.
to actually be able to win a professional event like that?
Yeah, yeah. I have those 9 wins. That's just in BASS, and then I've got other wins in other events and U.S. Bass and all those other things. But those are the ones that count, the BASS. But to win one, everything has to go right, And I think Roland had like 19 wins, and Kevin has pounded everybody with 25 wins.
Correct.
Circuit, and no telling how many wins he's had on Major League Fishing, and then other things also. But everything has to come together, and to do it one time is special. When you start getting multiples like 2 and 3 and 4 wins, that's when you start going, oh my gosh, this guy really figures it out and can really it makes that a very, very incredible thing. The opportunities come around. If you look at my record just in bass, I had 11 second place finishes. So think about that. 9 wins, that's 20 opportunities I've had just in first and second, and didn't accomplish, most of them. So putting it together to win one is really, it truly is incredible and fun. And of course, when you're young and things are rocking and it's happening and you're catching them, and you take it for granted. I'm going to win one here and another whatever. But as I get older now, I realize, man, that is so rare. If you look at people's records and you look at how many tournaments they fish and how many they win, I mean, a superstar is going to win 5% or 6% or something. It's really, really low. So that's how hard it is.
Yeah. To me, it's almost like I compare it to winning to like baseball. Like to be a Hall of Fame baseball player, you 300 average. So 3 out of 10 is all you got to hit just to be able to become a Hall of Famer. But bass fishing, the odds are even less in your favor than even baseball with having a 300 average. And so because people, what was it? I seen something that it was like for somebody to come up and win as many as what Kevin Van Dam has won, or even like Roland, it's like in a career they're having to win that many. They're having to win like one tournament every 3 or 4 years, and that's what the percentage is. It's not that. So 1 in 3 or 4 years, that's kind of crazy to me to think that it's really that hard. I mean, to be able to have that career. I mean, even like with your careers that you've had, and I've enjoyed. I love watching you because I'm more of like a bank pounder and stuff like that. I've here the past couple of years I've learned how to do the ledge fishing and stuff. But if I have to go catch a fish, I'm pounding the banks. And so seeing and watching you do like the sight fishing, And Norman and I were talking about it, and that was one thing we brought up was you doing the sight fishing that you've done and how you've critiqued that. I guess critiquing is the right word to say, but how you kind of mastered that to where both of us agreed that you were probably the best sight fisherman that a pro fisherman that is out there.
Well, I'm not saying that by any means, but I won a lot of tournaments doing it doing sight fishing, and so has Guido Hibden and a number of guys. And nowadays we have this young group of guys that are they're all really good sight fishermen.
Yeah.
So, they know how to do it and they catch them. So, it's nice to be known for something like that, but I can tell you those anglers now, I mean, you just got to understand how much it's changed. When I was there, we had 6 tournaments a year.
Right.
Started, in '84. I actually fished a couple BASSs. I fished one in '77 and then one like '80 and whatever. So I fished a few. But when I went full time in '84, there were only 6 tournaments. And that was the only professional tournament. It didn't have other tours, didn't have all that stuff. So nowadays, they start fishing as junior angler clubs. Then they have high school competitions, and they have teams that go all over everywhere and compete. Then they get college scholarships to go fishing. Amazing. So you can go to college on a fishing scholarship and compete all over the country. When you graduate college, you've had more tournament experience than I did probably the first 5 years on tour.
Yeah.
Fish 6 tournaments a year. They do that like over and over and over and over and over, and all the way from junior angler. So the knowledge that they have and how good these young anglers are just really impressive. Really impressive.
Yeah.
Now, do you think, was speaking of like the high school or the collegiate fishing, do you think that it is very possible that that a collegiate angler could come in and win the classic, or even like the Red Crest and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, you got to understand, it wasn't very many years that Jordan Lee was a pro before he won it, and he, right out of college, he wins the classic and wins it again. So, 2-time back-to-back classic champion, and that's coming out of college. So, yeah, absolutely. I would think, we talked about Brian Kirchhoff. He won as an amateur. So, and really kind of not. He did win through the federation, but that, the year before he had qualified for the classic, and then he gained entry to our tournaments through qualifying. That was one of the things that Wrangler gave him. So he was on our tour for a year, and then won the Bassmasters Classic. So anybody there could do it. I mean, if you're in the tournament and you qualify to fish it, you can win it. You just got to get on the right fish.
And I think the last 3 or 4, I'm not sure about this past classic, but I know, and if I guess I would say 5 in the last 7 or 8 classics that there has been an amateur in the Super 6. And it's pretty common to see an amateur at least up in the top 10, on the last day.
Yeah.
So,
It's like this year you had Louis Minetti in the top 25. I think he finished 20th or 21st.
yeah, he was out of the college ranks.
Yeah.
But
So,
you're always seeing the amateurs, so and that's just going to show that our sport today is in great hands in the future, because we have a lot of great, not only fishermen, but all these young fishermen coming up through the junior ranks, the high school ranks, the college ranks. They're great people, So our sport's in great hands for a long, long time. With all the young guys we got coming up today.
right.
Exactly.
Now, how or when was it that you knew that you could make it as a pro fisherman?
Well, I jumped out in '84. I'd fished tournaments since 74. So I spent about 10 years fishing tournaments around before I jumped out professional. And got me a visitor back there.
I see.
My dog. Anyway, and you come to say hi.
Oh, there he is. Hello, buddy.
Yeah, she's mad at me because I didn't get to feed her.
Yeah, right. Aw.
So, okay, go on. Go. Anyway,
That's awesome.
anyway,
That's awesome.
get to you in a minute. Anyway, so now I forgot where we were at. My dog got in there.
About when you knew that you could make it as a pro.
Yeah. So I was fishing tournaments and I got out on the BASS circuit in '84, and I think it was about 86 or 85 or 86. I made the 86 Classic, 85, 86. And I think it was like the year after that where I won Rayburn, but I still didn't feel, that was deserving because that was the first time they'd cut a day short. But I led in a super fast tournament on Harris Chain. I led all 4 days of the preliminary competition, and then they went to a 10-hole course or 6-hole course or whatever it was. So in that, when I led all 4 days, I felt like, yeah, I could probably make it. So it takes you a while, and to have the self-confidence that you can do it, and then to build up enough sponsorship to stay out there and all that kind of stuff. So, it's our business is not just fishing; it's a multifaceted deal of business and sponsorship and all kinds of stuff that we have to keep up with.
Yeah.
But it was nice to know that I think I've got the talent that I could do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And today's day and age, with the age of social media, and if you know how to market yourself, it's all about marketing, isn't it, Shaw? If you're pretty good at marketing yourself, because once you get at that level, at the pro ranks, it's all about marketing yourself, marketing your brand,
Exactly.
and being able to get the sponsorship you need.
It's about marketing your brand, but it's really about marketing your partner's brand. So, everything for me is like Triton Boats and Mercury Outboards, the guys that have been there. Strike King and Lou has been there.
Yeah.
These things have been with you your life, these companies, and they help you to keep going, and they help you in those tough times, and they keep you out there, and then they make some of the best products in the world, And so all of a sudden now you're catching them because you got the best stuff out there. That's pretty nice,
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, let's talk a little bit about One More Cast TV show, if you don't mind, because to me, that is where I found out who Shaw Grigsby is, was through that, and watching that it helped out because it showed like how the techniques and stuff like that, and what you've done and stuff like that. What did doing that show? What was that the like important? How important was that to do that show for you?
I've been asked a few times about doing television, and I really wasn't planning on it. And then a good buddy comes to me and says, "Hey, let's do this show and do a series." And I said, let's do it. And we did, and it takes a big toll on you because your concentration no longer is on the tour. It's on television, and making that happen, I'll never regret it. It was wonderful. And 20 whatever years that we were on the air. In fact, I know 3 of them, we were the #1 outdoor show on the network of any outdoor. So it didn't matter what you were doing, hunting, fishing, whatever, we outdid all of them. And we were the last 3 years on TNN. And but great times. It took me all kinds of places. I met all kinds of people, and the experience was fantastic. So I love doing it. And I wanted it to be real. So if we call a little one, we're keeping little ones. We're showing little ones. If we catch big, we're showing that. And I didn't want it to be fake. I didn't want somebody to see all 5 pounders or 6 pounders, and then they go fishing. They say, man, this looks like fun. They go get a rod reel, go out there, and they don't catch anything, or they catch one, and they think this is a sorry sport. I don't like doing this, and I'm going to go play golf. I didn't want that. I want them to know it's not easy.
Yeah.
You know, it's fun. It's outstandingly fun. I mean, you swing a golf club, you're not doing anything more just repetitive swinging a golf club and hitting a ball. Well, that's what we do casting, except we cast precision to this stump or this log or under this limb or you know, long casting here and there, and then you get to work a bait. So you're doing something. You're always doing something and looking, where's my next cast going? And there's so much involved in it. So I wanted to show how cool it was to go fishing, and how fun it was to go fishing, and make it fun for little guys, youngsters, and old people, and everything in between. That it's just the greatest sport out there, and that's really what I wanted to show.
That's awesome, and I excuse me, I remember as a kid growing up watching, the TV show One More Cast with Shaw Grisby, and I mean that's your show, and then a couple other fishing shows that were on at the time. That's kind of where I actually first started really getting my love with the sport of bass fishing, is being able to sit down in the living room and on the floor and watch, Shug Grisby on TV and the others that were on at the time, and I really got my love of fishing by kind of watching the television shows.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, and I love doing them. I really enjoy them. You know, we started Major League Fishing, and that took a lot of time, and I decided it was better to focus on Major League at the time, and so I quit doing the show, and I don't know if I'll ever go back or not. I'm getting old now. I have grandkids. I have 3 grandkids, and I love spending time with them, and I may have a year or 2 years, who knows, 3 years. I don't know how many years I've got out on tour again, but I don't foresee it cranking up the TV show again, but you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know both Norman and I both have YouTube channels, and but on my YouTube channel, I kind of got this from your show, but because I wanted to show more of less. It's not about going out there catching the big bass. Do we love catching the big bass? Yes. But I want to show, if I'm out on your boat or you're on my boat or Norman's with me or whoever I have on my boat or out fishing with, I want to show that anybody can go with somebody else, and the camaraderie that you have on that boat. Because Norman and I, we go out, we fish 3 or 4 times a week together, and if Norman catches a 6 pound smallmouth, I'm just as excited for him to catch that 6 pound smallmouth as if it was him. I'm probably more excited because I know they probably hear me in Chattanooga when we catch one like that.
Yeah. And to me, that's what it's all about.
You create such special memories in the outdoors. I mean, truly, the memories I have are outdoors. Special memories, there's not a whole lot of them that come indoors doing whatever. Outdoors, they're in print. I mean, I remember my first fish I've ever caught. I remember my first bass I've ever caught. I mean, that's incredible to be able to remember. I'm an old guy. I turned 67 next month, and you talk about something that you can remember when you were 4 and 5 years old, 3, 4, and 5 years old, and you remember things that imprint on your mind that most other things be long gone, but that isn't.
Yeah.
It's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, but I can tell you what what I caught them on.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. I remember the exact bait, what I was using, the exact hole I was in, but my wife says you can't remember to take out the garbage.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now we have a couple questions. One question is from an army buddy of my dad's. He lives in Missouri, and he says, "Were you ever surprised at the weigh-ins and won?"
Yeah. think there was one at Lake Seminole where I was close, but I was trying to catch the last fish, like a 3-pounder, and she's biting every cast, on the bed, and I got tangled up. I just said, I got to go, and I pulled the plug and left. I didn't catch her. And I realized I wasn't going to make it in time, and I knew I'd lost the tournament and cost my partner a check and all that kind of stuff. And I was really bummed, but I think I turned out to win it, so that was okay. So it happened, but you're not, there's some that you don't even have a clue. There would have been a number of tournaments that I would have won if we had what we have now with Score Tracker. Knowing where you're at would have been greatly, because right now when you don't know what you have compared to anybody else, there's no decisions you can make. You just fish and do the best you can do. If you know you're 2 pounds back or 3 pounds back, you can make decisions and say, hey, I need to do this. I need to catch a big one. Let me try something. And so that's what Major League Fishing brings to it, a live scoreboard, just like anybody else. Anybody, like a basketball game with 3 seconds left and you're down 1 or you're down 2, you say, I can shoot a 2 and maybe go in overtime, but if I hit a 3, I win the deal, And so you have that knowledge. Well, every other sport has that except, bass fishing. So I think that was one of the greatest advancements in tournament fishing is to have a score tracker. You have the knowledge of what every other fisherman does.
Yeah.
And that's his live well.
Now, another question is with the active target live scope, do you think that the fish that are being caught offshores, do you think that it's going to turn around to where more fish are going to be caught up against the bank?
I don't know. In other words, I guess the question's asking how is that going to affect the populations of the fish? Well, number one, most of those getting caught, people didn't even really know they were there. A lot of times you'll scan, you go, what the heck, way out here in the middle, big
Right.
nomadic, and so you learn some stuff by having it. I've learned so much with my active target, and I just put active target 2 on my boat. I get to play with that this next week up at Lake of the Ozarks. But, when you're able to scan and look and go, there's a fish, rather than cast, and hope you get by one, now you can know, hey, I just put it by a fish. Now, you don't know if it's what kind of fish it is, but you kind of get an idea. I mean, I've seen guys that are really good enough to say they know that, hey, that's a carp, that's this. They can tell by movements, looking at them, how the fin, how the tail looks, and things like that. So I don't have that many hours, but I'm still pretty good at it.
Yeah. Now, what was it like? Let's talk about your first BASS win. Did it feel like a bunch of weight just came right off your shoulders when you got that first?
Yeah, it was wonderful to get the win, and I think it was at Sam Rayburn '87, and they had a big storm coming in, and they canceled the day, and it was really blowing, so it would have been a little tough to go, but I felt we should have. Excuse me. And I really didn't want to win by canceling a day. I'm in the lead after day 2, and everybody else in every tournament that had won, you had to spend all 3 days fishing. So when they told me that, I said, you can't do that. We got to go fishing. And I had my partner in the boat, and I just said, let's go. And I took off, and I went across the cove, and I did my pattern real quick, and I caught one like in the first, 2 minutes or something, a pretty nice one, 2.5, 3 pounder. I went, well, I probably would win it anyway. So I went back and did it. So I had a little bit of a different experience for my first win. After that, every one of them was like, this is awesome. I mean, it's just, it's so special. And even my last one, I didn't believe I won that one. I had a big lead, and Grant Goldbeck had kept chipping away at it. Great guy. We were on Harris chain, and I kept thinking, I hope I got it. I think I got it. I can see we're in the sweet spot, so I can see him fishing. He sees me fishing, And when he weighed in, I wouldn't, everybody said, I think you got it. And I'm like, I don't care. I want to wait till he weighs in. When he weighed in, he did it. I went, yeah, I got it, and that was like incredible. So, every tournament win is, extremely special. And I hope that the guys out there on tour now, I hope they realize when they win, it's really special. You don't know if you get another one. You don't know if you're going to get 10 of them. You don't know if you're going to get 20 of them in your career. You could beat Kevin Van Dam's 25, but take advantage of that one. Enjoy every moment of it because it is very special.
Yeah.
Now we got another question. Says we all have lost a giant fish. What's the biggest fish you've ever lost, and do you still have bad dreams about it?
I've lost a number of ones, but the biggest one I've ever lost was in that 15 plus range, and I hooked it up. It couldn't even jump. I mean, I hooked it up on 10-pound test and a spinning rod in a little canal spawning. I mean, I never saw it. I'm just throwing a little worm out. Anyway, he comes up and it kind of comes out of the water and kind of flops, just kind of a little bit of the head and the body flops, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is bigger than anything I've ever seen in my life. And I fought it up and down the canal, and back then I had a hand control trolling motor, and the boat drifted into the grass, and the fish, came to the boat, as you wear them down, well, it went in the grass. And so now it's under some hyacinths, and I gently lift it up, and I see the hyacinths, undulating with the fish underneath it. And I tell my partner, I said, Nettie. And he said, Net what? It's all hyacinths. I said, Net everything. And the fish dove down and broke me off. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. After all that, to have that, that situation, and it would have been totally different, now, with the motor guide on there, I just keep it out in the middle, put control trolling motor, keep it out in the middle, and, she would have fought around out in the middle and we'd have landed her for sure. But it was a huge, when I say huge, it was really big. Really big.
That's insane.
That is crazy. Now, being like Chickamauga's, I guess you say, growing up in Nashville. In '99, I moved to Chattanooga, and so Chickamauga, growing up, I guess you say, in my teens, was the big bass factory around here, and I never have had. I've had 9s, 8s, 9s. I normally will catch a couple a year. I still to this day have not got a double digit yet. I had one on. My dad and I went to this lake, and I caught one that was 9.6. Then I had one that was 8.14, and my small fish that I had was like 4. It was a high 4. But then when I was throwing a Damiki vault, and I hooked up one, and as soon as I seen it, I told my dad, I said, this is my double digit. Well, and he's probably going to kill me for saying this, but I got the fish up to the boat, and I knew that it was about to take another little run, and as soon as I was about to tell him it's going to run, my dad stuck the net down, and all you heard is that tink off the net hitting the Damiki vault, and the vault goes flying up over my head, and I was like, there goes my 10-pounder. And so, but then about 2 or 3 minutes later, I keep on going fishing. My dad's still soaking up in the back of the boat. He still, to this day, he still feels bad that he knew that we had that 10-pounder. But so that is my big fish that I actually got it. It's on my YouTube channel. Shaw, that I posted it just because, just to kind of rub it in on my dad every now and then.
But most people wouldn't believe when you told them that most of your there's probably only a select, small average on tour that's ever caught a double digit fish.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think a 10 pounder is huge. I mean that's a landmark fish. That's one you want. And the cool thing is though is every day you go fishing, you got an opportunity, especially where you live. You have an opportunity to break that. And it's great to have goals, and it's great to have something to motivate you to go out and go fishing, and maybe even travel. My grandson, man, we need to go to OHIV, and I'm like, really, all the way to Texas because they're catching those 16, 17 pounders and stuff out there. So California and Texas and Florida and there's so many places. Our fisheries departments across the country, FWC, Florida Fish and Wildlife, they're doing such a great job of managing fisheries and making them where they are truly the best that they've ever been. And in modern times, they may have been better in the 50s when nobody was fishing. You had very few people, but anyway, that's special. That to me is special. So always having a goal and knowing that, hey, next time I go fishing, I can do that.
yeah. Now, Norman, you want to? I'll let you ask this question. It's the very last question that we have that was on the paper. Do you have it?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
You was thinking of that big fish you lost too, wasn't you?
No, I was actually about to go get a glass of water, getting a little lightheaded. So if you hear me slur my words, don't get worried. I'm just a little bit of the lightheaded side right now. So, but anyways, I spent 3 days on the water with a good buddy of yours, and he's also a real good friend of mine, Alan Armour. Last week he was practicing for the Toyota series, and he had mentioned something about your love of food.
Oh yeah,
While you're saying that, I gotta get me a glass of water. I'll be right back.
So speaking,
I do.
yeah,
See, that
and my
we, we had some good times traveling back in the days, and Alan's such a great guy, and I mean we pulled in at restaurants, and I mean eat ourselves silly, but I really did like eating, and I don't eat quite as much anymore, but used to be I could down a lot of grub, and now I turn that over to guys like Big Show, Scroggins, Terry definitely can outdo me anytime, and Chris Lane, a number of the guys, but I'm kind of everything that happens as you get older, you tend to slow down. You don't eat quite as much, but dude, I do love food, sushi and everything. So yeah, I've been known to hurt a few buffets.
yeah. Well, we got a couple more questions for you, Shaw. Um, my brother-in-law, every episode, it does not matter who we have on, he's always asking, "What is your favorite boat snack?"
Boat snack.
Boat snack, yeah.
I keep Cliff Bars in the boat. I'm not gonna say they're my favorite, but I vary up. There's a while it'll be those Nature Valley granola bars. Then it'll be Cliff Bars and but it's just something that can keep you level and you don't want too much to drag you down. If you eat like a big sandwich, a lot of times that drags you down. You get lethargic because blood has to go around your stomach and your gut to digest things. So making things that are small, quick, and very beneficial. Those things. Those little protein bars are wonderful. So I actually bought for this tournament. They had them on BOGO, buy one get one at Publix, our local supermarkets here. They got these peanut butter filled pretzels. So I'm gonna have a bag of those in this next tournament. I love those things. So.
Well, and our next question is from Lori and Beth with two chicks in a boat. They said that they talked to you before. I think they said it was in Columbus, Ohio, or something like that.
Yeah, big hugs. They're awesome.
Yeah. And we actually had them on our podcast last weekend or last week. And so when we announced that you was going to be on the podcast, they were so excited that was going to have him. They're like, he is the greatest, and we're like, we know. And so, but
I tell them hi right now. I really enjoyed hanging out with them, spending time in Columbus. It was fun.
right. Well, they said that they have a quick question for you. Do you ever think you'll ever see women's league take off like the bass and let's see, take off like the bass and gals of many years ago? You ever think MLF might put together something like that, competitive for women?
I would hope so. I think the coolest thing about fishing is a fish doesn't know. A fish has no idea if you're male, female. You don't have to be 6'6" and 300 and run a 40 and 4 point whatever. You can compete and do it. So a fish doesn't know if you're male, female, or whatever. So I would think that there probably will be that opportunity, in the future. I certainly know that I've enjoyed watching back in the days and supporting the bass and gals and those tournament trails, lady bass and all that. They're just great times out there. Um, so I would love to see that, and yeah, I would think that would be a very good move on MLF, on Major League Fishing, to
Yeah.
the women's tour.
Yeah, I think just like what you said, that the bass don't know, and if it's a male or female. I mean, I think that fishing, bass fishing, or just fishing in general, is probably the most level field. When somebody goes out, it does not matter male or female, because I've been in tournaments to where I've been smoked by a female, and I'm like, I just couldn't catch them. So, but I think I totally agree with you that women can compete in it. And I think a lot of the women, and correct me if you think I'm wrong, a lot of the women might just be that they're intimidated to go against the males in some way or another. I mean,
You do have restroom issues, things like that.
right.
That's and that works both ways. Guys and
Yeah,
girls in that situation. Um, so yeah, there's some reasons. I don't know that they're intimidated. I fished alongside women that could beat me and fished right
exactly.
time, and so I just think that it definitely behooves you to have a tour for women, because just they're much more comfortable in the boat.
Right. And that's what I think. Like especially like in the local, I guess is where what I'm kind of looking at is that women don't really want to go against the guys uh, because I guess they think that it might be unfair advantage that the guy has when it's really not. As soon as the horn blows or whatever, blast off, it is the most level field that you can get to where, because a female can go right behind me, exactly same line or whatever, and do something, throw something different, and they can catch more fish falling behind me than just as somebody else. But and Lori says that financial is a big factor too.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Yeah. So we have held you for over an hour, so we will not hold you much longer. But every episode, y'all, we ask every angler that we have come on the same exact question to end the show. If you could have anybody for one day fishing on your boat that is living or have passed, who would that be?
Wow. Um, right off the bat, I'd say my dad. But if I could have anybody in history, I'd probably say Jesus Christ.
Heck yeah.
And, I think I get to meet him personally here in whenever that time comes, and it'll be very special. So, but
That's awesome.
That would be. There's a lot of questions I'd love to ask him.
Well, and the thing about it, he'd probably say, "Shaw, go throw on the other side of the boat."
Exactly. It would be amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So, Shaw, we deeply appreciate you coming on here, and we hope to get you back on here sometime soon, and we people are just keep on. We've actually had over 900 views in this little hour time of watching this live. Uh, so, and that's one of our highest. Our highest videos are doing the live. That's one of the highest that we've had. So, and I hope that everybody has got to learn something about Shaw. He's told us some crazy stories. He's told us stories of what not to do, as in bringing a rattlesnake into the kitchen for your wife to come walking in. But Shaw, we deeply appreciate it, and so I wanted to tell you thank you personally. One thing is we tried to get to when you came to Saudi Daisy here about a month and a half ago. Uh, we was trying to get over there to the church that you was speaking at, and so but my work schedule did not allow. But I was able to make contact with you and talk to you for a little bit until the line started backing up, and you told me to get out of the way so you can talk to everybody else at the classic. So, but Shaw, we deeply appreciate it, and we love hearing the stories, and especially when you was talking about the classic back in the early days. A lot of people really don't. They just see the classic now of what it is now, and with you talking about what you had to do, the 10-pound tackle boxes and stuff like that. That's phenomenal stories. So, but we appreciate it, and again, like I told you earlier, if you're in Chattanooga, you need to holler at me. Me and you will go eat some sushi, brother. So,
I'll take you up on that.
heck yeah. So, but we're going to get off here. Thank y'all for watching, and if you can hit that subscribe button on Deck Talk Podcast on YouTube, we appreciate it, and share it, please. We will see y'all here next week, and we hope that you live the passion. See you guys.
See ya. Awesome. Hey, Shaw, real quick before you go off, I want to. This is really embarrassing to me because I'm on new prescription